Welcome to Wisdom for Nonprofits, bringing the best business wisdom to the nonprofit world. Proven leaders share their experience, insights, and best practices. Finally, a podcast for the busy nonprofit professional. And now, your trusted advisor, Bettina Meyer-Flug.
Facing technology without frustration, is that even possible? Are you considering investing in a new piece of technology for your nonprofit or migrating your CRM to a new one with more features? Yeah, choosing the right technology platform for your organization requires aligning the features and packages of the software available in the market to your organization's requirements and needs. Modern technology has come a long way and plays an important role when fighting for dollars from your donors and foundations. However, with multiple platforms available in the market, this choice is even harder. Finding one that works best for your growing organization can be challenging. As a nonprofit professional or a person responsible for implementing a new CRM, the choice can quickly become complicated. To save time and help make the decision easier, we have invited to our podcast a specialist in this field called Patty Breech. She will bring to us key considerations that will help you choose the right tech platforms for your nonprofit. Patty spent 5 years working for the Blink Now Foundation in Nepal, an organization changing the world by empowering Nepal's youth. During that time, she grew the organization's social media following by 2,600% and tripled the size the supporter database. She also led a marketing campaign that successfully convinced the world to vote for organization's founder in 2015, the CNN Hero of the Year award. A self-proclaimed data geek, Patty is forever crunching numbers and studying spreadsheets. She loves putting systems into place and help teams work with more efficiency. She graduated from Yale University and loves living here in Colorado. She lives close by me here in Boulder and is part of Consultant for Goods. She works for an organization called the Purpose Collective, and she will be sharing with us amazing tips today. Welcome, Patty, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Patty, can you explain for the nonprofits that doesn't have a CRM what a CRM database can do for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to think of a CRM as one central place to hold all of your organization's information. So right now, if you think about your information, like who are your donors, what's their giving history, who are your volunteers, who's on your email list, if you don't have a CRM, that information might be spread out in lots of different locations. So you might have some of it saved in a spreadsheet or 10. Some of it might be saved in your email program. Some of it might just be in someone's memory, like in your executive director might just be walking around with all that information in her head. Maybe it's spread across a few people, like some of your board members know some of the donation history, some employees know the rest of it. But it could be pretty scattered. And the beauty of a CRM is taking all that information and putting it in one spot. So it's really easy to access. So if you are trying to find out, let's say you got an email from a supporter named Jane Smith and you want to know, who is Jane Smith? How long has she been with our organization? Has she ever made a donation? If so, what size was the donation? How many times has she given? Without a CRM, you might need to make 4 or 5 phone calls. You might need to send some emails. You might need to do some digging to find that out. But the idea of having a CRM is you log in, you look her up, and all that information is right there at your fingertips.
That's awesome. And for organizations who want to choose a CRM, what's the process to choose the ideal CRM? And or even if you want to migrate to a new one, what do you recommend them to do?
Yeah, great question. So I want to start by saying I'm really impressed with how far the nonprofit CRM world has come. CRMs used to be something that were really just made for for-profit companies. And nowadays, that's not true. There's a lot that are specifically made just for nonprofits. So they have a lot of functionality that's really helpful for what we do here in the nonprofit sector. But that being said, there is no perfect CRM. So I just want to manage everyone's expectations first and foremost by saying there's a lot of great systems out there, but none of them is perfect. So there will always be things that you like about it and things that you wish were different about the system, whichever one you go with. So my recommendation for teams to start with is to make a list of everything that you would want in a perfect CRM. So do you want it to be able to process donations for you? Do you run events a lot? Do you do online auctions? Do you have a big volunteer group of people? Do you take a lot of pledges? What is it that you would want this system to do? Make a big list and then try to divide that list into your must-haves and your nice-to-haves. So the must-haves shouldn't be too many, probably less than 5. But the nice-to-haves, you can have as many of those as you want. So a nice-to-have, for example, might be the ability to accept crypto as a donation. Like, that sounds pretty cool. Cryptocurrency is very trendy these days. You might want to definitely go with a system that can process crypto donations for you. That's probably a nice to have. There's going to be a lot of great systems out there that might not be able to do that. And I'm guessing your organization will be just fine without that feature. So you might mark that one as a nice to have, as opposed to a must have. Could be something like, it's really important to us that the database that we go with is really user friendly. So we want there to be a really short learning curve. We want everyone in our organization to be able to log in and find their way around. We want them to need just a couple of hours to familiarize themselves with the system, as opposed to having to take a few weeks of training before they understand how it works. Our team is too small. We don't have the time or the resources to invest in that kind of education. So having a really quick starting off point, a really short learning curve, is a must-have for us for a database. So that's how I recommend starting off. Make that list and decide which features you absolutely must have in a database.
That's a great tip. I would like to add for this, just for you to come up with this must-have list, maybe a strategy could be separate in stakeholders group, for example, the executive, the development staff, marketing staff, event staff, and program managers, and ask them their pain points. For example, for an executive director, a pain point could be it takes weeks to prepare a report for the boards. For the development staff, for example, when I talk to prospect donors, I don't always know who's already talked to them, and so on. So if you talk with your event staff, our event data spreadsheet across multiple spreadsheets. So you can pinpoint the pains that you have, and then you come up with a must and ideal, whatever you want in your new CRM. Okay, now they have this list. What is the next step, Patty?
Yeah, so I would recommend this. This is where it's going to get a little bit geeky. I have an example of this list that I'd be happy to share with you, but I recommend creating a weighted value system. So go take a look at a few of the CRMs that are out there and start making a note of whether they meet your must-have characteristics or your nice-to-have characteristics. So a must-have, if the answer is yes, they have this must-have quality, that database would get 1.5 points. If they meet a nice-to-have, it gets 1 point for that. And if it doesn't do it, it gets 0 points. So take a look at 2 to 3 different databases out there and just make a note of like, yes, they have this, no, they don't. Yes, they have this, no, they don't. And if you add up all those numbers, you'll start to see a score. There might be a database that scores in the 50s, meaning it has really only half of the things you're looking for. And there might be one that scores more in the 80s or 90s, meaning this is a database that's really meeting your qualities. And I say 50s or 80s or 90s, I mean percentage, excuse me, of all the points that are possible versus the points that they have met for you. So that's a pretty mathy way to figure this out, but it has never failed me. I think it can be easy sometimes to be attracted to a shiny feature of a database and then not realizing that they don't meet 75% of your other characteristics. So that's how I do it using a spreadsheet.
That's nice. There are some nonprofits that I have interviewed, and they have problems like they need to add not just the CRM, but they need to implement as well a phone system and an event management system that not all the CRMs has available. So what do you recommend when they need to acquire several systems at once, everything to run the whole organization? Because a phone system is important nowadays, mainly if you are supporting your constituents. So if they want to evaluate how the systems will be connected, how they can do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you have a couple of options. One is you can look for a program that's sort of an all-in-one system. So that means in addition to being a database of your supporters, it will also have the ability to process your donations, to send your emails, to run your event RSVP system, to text your supporters, to call your supporters, all of that all in one. Or you could look for a system that is maybe a little bit slimmer. So maybe it's just the database, maybe one or two of those other things. But then it works with Zapier, or it has a lot of other integrations. So Zapier is one of my favorite programs. It's just a middleman program. So all it does is it links one program to another. So when something happens in program A, Zapier can make something else happen in program B. So if you go with a database that can work with Zapier, you are setting yourself up for success in the future, because there might be a program that you come across, there might be a program now that you're using that you want to be able to talk to your database, and you can do that through Zapier. Or there might be a program down the road. You have no idea that you need it now, but maybe a year or two from now, you decide, hey, it would be really nice if we could have a better online silent auction system. We haven't ever done silent auctions before. We want to start doing them, but we want to make sure that everybody's winning bids are making it into our database. We don't want to have to manually upload that information. If your database works with Zapier, and if the auction system you go with works with Zapier too, then it's really easy to link the two. So that's always a really big gold star that a database gets for me, is if it's compatible with Zapier.
That's cool. And you work for the Purpose Collective. Can you explain what your organization do for nonprofits?
Yeah, so we're digital marketing consultants. So we help nonprofits with their social media, their email marketing, their websites, their database, really anything that has to do with communicating with your supporters online. My team and I, as you mentioned at the beginning, used to work for an organization in Nepal. And that organization was unique because they're located about 8,000 miles away from the majority of their donors. And all they had to communicate with those people was the internet. So they had this unique challenge of how to get people to care about something that is happening 8,000 miles away from them, they will never experience in person. And my team and I learned a lot about how to do exactly that through a social media post, through an email, through a website. And we decided to take what we learned there and help other nonprofits see a similar type of success.
Wow. And I know that you guys have a special package that you offer to help nonprofits implement CRM, because what's challenging for nonprofits, they don't have a tech-savvy person inside the organization. They have loving people who understand about their program, who knows how to run volunteers, but they don't have someone techie. So how does your organization help nonprofits face this challenge of choosing their tech platforms and also choosing or migrating to a new CRM?
Yeah, great question. So we have a lot of options available. Probably the most popular one is that we can help you choose the CRM that's the best fit for you. So we'll start by asking you a bunch of questions, just like you said, what are your pain points? If you already have a CRM, what do you love about it? What do you want to make sure your new CRM is also able to do? And we make that list of the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. And then we set you up with demos as you like, or just fill in that spreadsheet from what we know of the CRM world and help you make the decision. Then we can also make sure that your data gets migrated over to your new CRM successfully. And then a really popular service of ours is to train your team on how to use this new database. So I know that in the nonprofit world, we all can feel like we have 2 or 3 jobs, even though we're only being paid for one, and we don't have enough time to take on extra things. So I know that the idea of like, okay, we have this shiny new database, but like now I have to like start using it. I have so many other things to do. We can really help with that transition and show you, here's how to run a report. Here's how to run the top 5 reports that you're going to use on a daily basis. Here's how you merge your duplicates. Here's how you use all these features. If you're confused about how something works, we'll walk you through it. So our goal is really to get you off on the right foot so that this new tool really does save you time in the long run.
That's great. I love to use the metaphor of a garden versus technology to explain how hard it is to implement new technology. So imagine if you want to have a beautiful garden. Imagine if you want to have a very efficient nonprofit. That's the parallel I'm going to make. You have to select the seeds. Isn't that right? Then you're going to plant the seeds, water, add some fertilizer, pull some weeds often, constantly, and then you're going to be able to harvest on your garden. The same thing with your CRM. Choosing the seeds is choosing the partners, choosing the available platforms that you have over there. Planting your seeds is whenever you go implementing. It's super important for you to water and fertilize. That means really engage your staff on everything you do. Clean the database, as Patty was saying, it's super important before migrating, cleaning everything, making constant updates, doing the integrations if necessary, and creating effective reporting. When I mean pulling the weeds, you have to enforce data quality. You have to engage with all the people who are interacting with your CRM to pull the weeds, because if you're going to have a lot of weeds, you don't have clean data for reports. So when talking about engaging staff members, Patty, what are your tips about it? How can we involve everybody in the organization to be on the same page? Because some of them are more savvy on technology, some of them are less savvy. How do you guys approach this of making everybody engage?
Yeah, so I feel like one situation you don't want to end up in as a nonprofit is where you have one person on the team who knows how to use the database and who logs in on a regular basis, and nobody else ever does it. They just rely on that one person. I know I've been a part of organizations like that in the past, and while that one person is usually very, very good at what they do, part of the problem with that is if that person leaves, they retire, if they get a different job, your organization might be in a pretty uncomfortable position. But also, if that person stays forever, you're going to have a bottleneck anytime you want to get something done related to the database if you all have to go through one person. So I think it's important to try to make the database feel accessible to your team, especially your core team. Maybe there's someone who is part-time and doesn't really have a role related to the database. It's fine if that person doesn't log in on a regular basis, but you definitely want to have your core team comfortable in there. And so I think setting that tone from the beginning and saying, all right, let's have everyone log in. Let's talk about what are the top 3 things that you would do in this database. Maybe it's just as simple as looking up a donor. Let's make sure that everybody knows how to look up a donor, and let's practice it several times so that you feel comfortable with it. Or maybe it's something more sophisticated, like for a development director, If you want to know all the donations that came in the last month, let's make sure you know how to run that report. And let's do repetition on that for you. Let's have you practice several times so that it feels comfortable. I think the more that you can make the database feel like it belongs to everyone and it's not just the property of one person, the more your team will benefit.
That's great. And pulling the weeds, like I said, enforcing quality data. How can we engage everybody on really inputting the right database data on the database?
Yeah, those pesky weeds really do like to pop up all the time, despite our best efforts to keep them away. I think there's a few simple things you can do, like trying to deduplicate your database on a regular basis is a good idea. So just making sure that you have a process in place for someone to go in. Maybe it's everyone who does this, depends on how easy it is to find duplicates in your database, depends on your platform. But a process of saying, you know, did we end up with 3 Patty Breeches in this database? Let's merge them all together. I would recommend doing something like that once a month. And also making sure that you have written out your processes somewhere very clearly. We like to create what we call a how-to guide for every database that we implement for our client. And so that how-to guide would have instructions for the, excuse me, the things that happen most frequently. So for example, if you're going to upload a spreadsheet of donations that came in maybe via check, we would have a really clear step-by-step instruction page that says, here's how you do it. Here are the headings that you should have in your Excel file. Here's where you go within the database to upload this information. Taking the time to write that out in a central location that everybody can access so they're all on the same page can be really beneficial.
Yeah, one of the training tools that I love is Loom. Is a software that you can use to record your screen and has a little camera that capture your face. With Loom, you can create easy and free videos for your trainings and make it available for everyone from your organization. That's very helpful. Patty,
Yeah,
how would you recommend people do the database migration? Any tips on that? Because they need to stop operating, there are better timing to do the migration, or how to prepare? Do we export everything on Excel spreadsheets? What is your recommendation?
Yeah, my first recommendation is to go with a database program that will that has a conversions team and that will handle that for you. The more you can leave this to professionals, the better. But if you're on your own, I think that deduplication, again, is really important. So that's when we say cleaning up your data, that's a lot of what we refer to. You want to make sure you don't have the same person in your database more than once. Maybe they're in there once under their old address and once under their new address. And you want to make sure that those records are combined and they're as up to date as possible. So before you do a migration is a really great time to go through and clean all that up. Another thing that you can do to prepare is to make sure there's not extra information in your database that you're not using anymore. So I know a lot of us like to put people on lists, for example, that might be called something like Giving Tuesday 2019 has donated after 10/1. You know, something that we used at one point to segment people and so we could communicate with them in a certain way. But now that segment is meaningless to us. I don't know what that means anymore. I'm not going to use that anymore. It's from 2019. Maybe you go through and delete things like that that don't mean anything to you anymore. I know also there's a lot of databases use systems of flags or tags. And sometimes those tags are redundant. So you might have like a board member tag, but you might have a board member 2020 tag, and you might have a board member 2022 tag. Which of those tags designates your board member? I would make sure that all that is cleaned up so you're not transferring outdated information into the new system. And I think you also asked about timing. I would say pick a slow time of year to do a database migration if you can. So for most of us, the holiday giving season is a really busy time. So I wouldn't go anywhere near a database migration in October, November, or December. Just get through the holidays as best you can and worry about the database another time when things are a little slower.
And how long it might take a database migration or an implementation?
So in my experience, the conversion usually takes about 3 months, but that is also when you're using a company's conversions team. So I would plan for that as well. If you're going to do it on your own, or maybe you don't have a database and you just have some spreadsheets and you feel like you can upload it all yourself, it might go a little bit faster than that, but I think 3 months is a good rule of thumb.
Perfect. Any other tips for our nonprofits on how to do that efficiently whenever they need to integrate with other systems, for example, a phone system, like they're going to use Zapier, but how can they do this 2 changes at once?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the more that you can test your system as you go, the better. So if you're replacing your phone system, if you used to do it one way, now you're going to replace it with another way, make sure that the first few phone calls that you are testing the new way with are not a high stakes situation where if there was a glitch, it would really affect your organization. So same thing if you're migrating to a new database that has a new donation processor, you want to make sure those first 3 or 4 donations are coming in from your staff members, just to test out, see how it works, make sure it shows up correctly. We want to make sure that your donors, your supporters don't experience the glitches. We experience those first and fix them as much as we can, which goes back to why I think a switch like this shouldn't happen during a very busy time of year.
Oh, for sure. I know that you guys offer some free office hours. Can you explain a little bit about this service that you guys offer?
Yeah, so our free office hours are every Monday afternoon, and any purpose-driven organization is welcome to sign up for a time slot, and it's an hour of free advice on whatever you want. So sometimes organizations will come to us and just say, hey, can you take a look at all our stuff? Take a look at our website, take a look at our social media, just give us some feedback. We're happy to do that. Other times we have organizations come to us with a lot more specific questions, like I am trying to use Zapier and I'm stuck and I need your help. Can you spend an hour with me on this? We are happy to oblige in whatever way is most useful to you.
That's awesome. Very helpful for any nonprofits. And you have some free resources on your website. Can you explain what you guys offer for free there too?
Yeah, so we have a few different guides on our website. So things like how to set up an email welcome journey, which is something we also love to talk about, or how to tame the social media beast, as we say, so how to make it easier to post on social media every day. One of my most favorite free resources is something we call our monthly marketer meetup. So if you are in a marketing position for your organization, you're welcome to join us on the last Thursday of each month. We get together with other social impact marketers and we share resources. So it might be us teaching the group about a really cool new program that just came out. It might be a group member coming and saying, hey, I'm stuck on this problem. I need some help. Does anyone have any input? But it's a free resource. It's a really fun group, and we'd love for anyone to join.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate, and I think everything you share here with our nonprofits was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom for Nonprofits. To hear past and future episodes, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast channel. We appreciate your reviews and suggestions for future show topics. If you have a question or a suggestion, please write to us at podcast@wity.tech. More resources are available for you at our website, wity.tech. And please join us in the Wisdom for Nonprofits group on LinkedIn. Wisdom for Nonprofits is copyright 2019 by Bettina Meyer-Flug and wity.tech. All rights reserved.